All right.
Okay. Hi, everyone. You guys know me. It's Carla with a K. Just kind of specify. And I'm going to be going over how to use a generic model helper today. So you might be asking what the generic model helper is. So the generic model helper is a tool that Zach made for the drafters so that we can easily model in generic models in our projects, like mat clips, embeds, or Sendry brackets. And shout out to Zach for making this. It's so helpful. I remember when I first started and I was putting in embeds and I had to do it manually. It took a lot of time and they weren't always in the correct position. So this generic model helper is a really great tool because it's a lot faster and it makes sure that the generic models are placed incorrectly if you use it right. So where can you find the generic model helper tool? So you're going to find it under the WW modeling tab. It's going to be to the left of that under the database section. And you can see it right there in the red square, generic model helper. It's going to be right next to the elevation generator, or like we drafters like to call it, quasar. And how do you use it? So there's a link on the Walt YouTube channel that you can watch that Zach made for it. And I said it's not as fun because you can also continue watching me present this to you on how how I'm going to demonstrate it live. And I'm probably going to make a lot of mistakes and just be very, nervous the whole time. So that probably is a lot more fun for you guys to watch.
Yeah, it's okay. I know every time when Zach does a live demo, it always goes wrong. So don't feel
Oh
bad.
yeah, I'm sure it'll go wrong for me too. So, you know, it's gonna be fun for you guys. That's all I have to say. So for this, I am going to be using the Google Gibraltar, um, building 3 model because I used the generic model helper for Google Gibraltar, and so I have experience of using it on this. And Google Gibraltar is a pretty easy building. It's square and it's pretty easy. I don't know if maybe if it was like 600 Clyde where they have segmented walls, that would be more complicated to use the generic model helper, but this one's fairly easy. So I chose this one to use. So as you can see, I'm in the WW modeling tab. Over here is the generic model helper, so you have to click on that. So to start off, you have to, in the generic model helper tool, you have to click on elevations on this little dot, dot, dot to select all the elevations you want. So before I do that, I just want to show you guys that I deleted all of the embeds on the south side here. So those are the ones I'm going to be placing. I also deleted the sunshade brackets from this. So on this side is the one that I'm going to be placing all of the generic models. So I'm going to click all of them. Please bear with me because this can kind of get annoying having to click the actual elevations. And there's overall on this side 11 elevations, but because they're split up into the 2 floors, it's going to be overall 22 elevations. It probably doesn't help that I'm nervous and kind of shaking a little.
You're doing good, Carla.
Thanks. I don't really like public speaking, even though I don't know that this is considered public speaking since we're all at home on our computers, but so once you select all of them, if you click up here on the finish button, it should appear, say 22 elevations selected, and you'll see on the screen the 22 elevations. So what we want to do is we're gonna, for this portion, I'm going to be adding in the mat clips and the embeds, and for that, I'm going to be using the selected elements instead of the faceless systems because I want to place them on the slab. So you have to click this dot 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 now and come back into this model, select the slab. There's like two different ones in this model, but this one is the one where all the mat clips and embeds are going to go to. So then you just press finish. It'll show up here along with all the elevations. So now that we did that, I don't want to use any of these horizontal ones because that's why we did select the elements and I added in the slab. So what you want to do is right click in here and you're going to click load levels. So this is the second level, so I'm just going to click level 2 here and it's going to highlight it in red. And then for Google Gibraltar, we used only Mac 11s, but the ones on the jams are going to be offset. So I'm going to show you those later. For now, I'm just going to show you the ones at the verticals. So if we go into this section, the verticals, I'm just going to right click and I'm going to click select all and all vertical lines. So that selects all of those. So now I have all of that selected where I want to put my mat clips and embeds. So now up here, it has generic models. You should make sure that you have all the generic models you want to be putting in with this generic model helper already loaded in. So we, for this one, already have it loaded in. So I'm going to be choosing Mac 11. And then if you right click on here, you can add more generic models. So I'm also going to be putting in, we use a FE09 with the Mac 11s. But for these, I want them to be lowered. So the Mac 11s are going to be lowered by 1/4 inch and the FE09s are going to be lowered by 2 3/4 inches. So I don't know about you guys, but to me, it seems a little counterintuitive. The red here is the red here on the horizontal, and that one is the one that's gonna change the left and right, I think, of it. Oh, I had this all practiced too. So the red box moves it. Oh, okay, no. The red box actually moves it up and down. So I always think that the red line is gonna change it left and right. So I get confused by that. But the red line actually changes it up and down. And the green line is actually the one that changes it left and right. But for these verticals, we're not gonna be moving them left or right at all. So it's only gonna be on the red ones. And so since I said we wanted this to be lower by 1/4, I'm going to just type that in. And this one is going to be lowered by 2 3/4. You can see them in here. So a little tip to use if you're ever going to use the generic model helper is to make sure you're over something that's highlighting like this, or if you're going to like move the model at all, because if you're not and you're just trying to turn it, it'll go a little crazy and turn it a lot. So make sure you're over something that's highlighted. And if I turn it enough, you can see the mat clips are there, the embeds are in there too, but because they're lowered, they're not showing since they're in the slab. So
real quick, Carl, so
yeah.
that preview window, that just shows it real time, right? Before you actually place that into the model, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is before we put it in. So once we click this place generic models, it'll be in the actual model. Sometimes it's glitchy though. I don't know if Zach has fixed it, but I know there's a few times for me where it didn't actually show me the generic model, like the mat clip or embeds in this window, but it would place it into my model. But it seems for the most part that it works now, so maybe he did fix it. But if I did everything correctly, which I hope that I did, there's 3 per each of these, and there's 11 total. So I think it should be placing, and there's 2 different generic models, the embeds and the mat clips. So I think total it should be placing 66 generic models, or 33. It should be 66. Did I not place them? Oh man. So it's showing the embed or the mat clip. I'm not sure why it's not showing the embed. Oh, I didn't put the negative, I guess. So let's remove this one because I already placed those. So now, well, now if we place this one as well, it should show 33 again. So there they go. Sorry for.
Can I ask something? If you don't remove, it'll just do double counts.
Yeah, if I didn't take it off, it would place another mat clip again. So always be careful because that's happened to me before where I didn't realize that, and then the mat clips had like double count everywhere, and it was annoying to have to figure that out later. But as you can see, if I hide this portrait, like they're all placed in here. They all should be. What I realized recently is that Zach, I guess, hasn't implemented it to automatically put the schedule level. So you do have to make sure that you press the schedule level to be level 2, and then you'll see in here that it's -1/4 like it should be. And then you have to do the same thing with the embeds. So those are all placed in now on all of these. If I hide more, you will see all of those are placed. So that's for the vertical, if you don't have to move it left or right. But for the jam, we are gonna have to move it left and right. So let me add the Mac clip again. -1/4. And then for these ones, at least on this project, because I know it's not the standard, but for this project, we had to, or we didn't have to, but we made the offset 11 1/8. So I'm going to deselect all lines, and then for this one, I'm going to select all left jams. So it should be here. This is all correct, but for this, we're going to have to change it so it's 11 1/8. So this is the correct place. This one is now going to be the correct place. We want it in the second level, and it's going to be on all the left jams. So hopefully this time I did it correctly, and it'll be 22 that it's placing. So it says 22 right here, and if we go in here, I guess I should just leave this hidden. You'll see the left jam was placed. So if we do the same thing, go back in here, deselect everything, and then you select all right verticals or right jam lines. Did I set it? And then for this one, you're gonna have to do a -11 1/8. So you just have to go in there and put the negative sign. And it should be the same 22. If I did it correctly. And there it shows up. Again, you will have to change all of the schedule levels to be the second level, but they should all be 1/4 down and 2 3/4 down. So that is all the mat clips and embeds. They should be in all of them. And I guess, do you guys have any questions on this before I move on to showing you guys how to put in the sunshade brackets? Cool. I hope I'm not going too fast. Please let me know if I am. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I actually know the answer, but I'm going to ask it for everyone else. What do you do if you have your slab plan linked into your model? Can you still use the generic model helper?
You mean like if it's from the architecturals?
Yeah, so if you don't actually have a slab in your model, but you're just relying on the architectural slab.
I believe you can still use it, but I've never
We
had to use
did
it like that.
we did do it on Samaritan. So you
We
actually
copied it
it
in,
actually
right?
won't work
Oh, well.
if you're relying on the slab. Yeah, it won't work if you're relying on the slab from the architectural model. You'd have to copy and place
Okay.
the slab into your model,
Okay.
which can present challenges depending on the project and how
Yeah.
complicated the slab is.
And that's
That's
if the
true.
architect model is like exactly how we need it, right?
Which is not
Well,
really
you know, sometimes we're just using the architect model depending on the project. In that case, you have to come up with workarounds to use the generic model helper.
Yeah, I mean, because I remember for Samaritan, we copied it in. So that's why I'm like, I've never had to try it because we copied it in, but that would make sense.
Yeah.
So I guess if you don't have the slab in your project, but you do have it in the generic in the architecturals, as long as you copy and paste it into your project, you should be able to still use the generic model helper if hopefully they have in the correct location and the dimensions and all that are good. But you know, they're not always, so just be on the lookout for that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so now I'm gonna show you guys how to put in the Sendry brackets. So let's deselect all of this. For the sunshade brackets, we're actually going to be using face of systems instead of selected elements, so the slab is going to go away. We're still going to be using level 2 for this. We don't need the second one, so I'm going to remove it. We're going to change this to the sunshade bracket. For this project, we use W755710. And the sunshade bracket is actually going to be negative or positive, sorry, 1 foot 5 3/8 up. So I'm gonna type that out, 1 foot, and it's not going to be moved left or right at all. For this project, we only had them on the verticals. We didn't have any on the ends, so I'm just gonna right click here and select all vertical lines again. So you can see in here that they're in the model or in this window, but they're not in the orientation that I want them. So depending on the project, you're gonna have to figure out how many degrees you want to turn it or like how far up or down you want it. For this project, clearly it was already done, so I know that we want this to be 90 degrees. So I'm just going to put in 90, and now it is oriented the right way that I want it, and it is in the position that I want it. So if I load this in.
I got a quick question.
Yes.
So since you already kind of knew where all these were placed beforehand and rotated, did you get that just by trying like one and seeing where that falls first?
Yeah, when I first used the generic model helper, well, for the embeds and the mat clips, it was pretty easy getting that information from the drawings to know it's negative 1 foot, or sorry, 1/4 down from the slab and negative 2 3/4. But for the sunshade brackets, that one was a little bit harder. I mean, that one was also in the drawings, but I didn't model that correctly. It took me a little longer for those ones to be modeled incorrectly. It was trial and error for sure. So for that one, I did model the first one, and then before I used the generic model helper, I think I just copied and pasted them every like 4 feet from for all the lights. So it was trial and error. But if you have that information, like right now I have the information, it'll make it a lot easier to load them in. So as you can see, they're loaded in here, but these are actually not looking the same over here. So what I'm going to do is just right click, select all instances, and I'm going to change this so that it matches with the other ones. So this is actually going to be 8 inches, and this is going to be 6.5. Again, this is just because I already had all this information since I had already modeled these before. So if you don't have it, you will have to figure out exactly what all of these dimensions are going to be. But they look the same now. They're in the right locations. This was a lot easier to do. I think when we first started with Google Gibraltar, we made a curtain wall, an empty curtain wall, so that we could place the sunshade brackets on that, so that they were hosted on that. Here, they're going to be hosted to whatever elevation they're on. So I think if I hide the elevation, it's going to also hide. Oh, well, it should have. I mean, that's interesting. But it's a lot easier now because we did, when we were working on this project, we did create those curtain walls, and we had to label them sunshade brackets and place the sunshade brackets on there. If there's any takeoff people like Yana, she could probably attest to that. It was kind of annoying, I feel like, for when they were doing glass takeoffs, because there was more curtain walls in there than needed to be because of the way that we modeled the sunshade brackets. But now with the generic model helper, it's a lot easier. And I think that's it. So let me go back to my presentation. So overall, the steps for using the generic model helper, you're going to select the elevations that you want. If the elevations are in groups, we don't see that on Gibraltar since it already went through takeoffs, and when it goes through takeoff, the groups don't last anymore, so they're not in groups. But if they were in groups, you would have to make sure that you're clicking on the actual elevation instead of the group. And after that, you're going to select if you want it to be a faceless system, or select the elements depending on what generic model you're going to be placing. Then you'll select the generic models you want to place, make sure that you have them loaded in before, and then you select the lines, elevations, levels, whatever that you want the generic models to be on. So, and a tip like I used in this presentation is if you right click, you can select all lines or all vertical lines, or right jam or left jam, to make it an easier process. You adjust your offset or rotation depending on the generic model, if it needs to be up or down or left or right. And then you just hit the place generic model, and it should work its magic, and they should be placed in your project, hopefully correctly, unlike the first time I did it. And that's all I have. Yes, James?
I got a question. So when you place the generic models in there, does it automatically like know which elevations it's being applied to tell, you know, the takeoff program where those clips are being, like which elevation they're being applied to?
It should know, because when you select the elevations here, it should come up here, if that's what you're asking. So if, for example, I only click this one elevation, it's only going to place them at this one elevation, and it should be tied. Well, the mat clips and embeds are going to be hosted onto the slab, but it should be tied to that certain elevation because you selected it up here. I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, so if you click like a mat clip real quick. So since it's being hosted on that floor slab,
yes.
Does it tell us which elevation or which floor it's on?
You mean this one right here?
Is it? Okay.
I think if you do like pick new.
So like over here where it says like level 2. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that way we don't have to go back and like select all our second level mat clips and assign it to floor 2 then.
Oh, I think you do. Like this one that I just showed. I thought Zach had it so that when you put it in, it would know that it's at level 2, and so the schedule will say level 2. But it seems like he hasn't, so you would have to make sure that you put that it's level 2, and then it'll know. It is hosted to this floor slab already, but it doesn't have the schedule level on there, so you will have to make sure that you put that. I don't know if he knows that that's something that we would want for this to work on it, but you will have to remember to do that. Is there any other questions? Celine?
Yeah, maybe it's a dumb question. Is the offset is to the center line of the bracket always? When you set the offset?
The offset is going to be from the vertical. So like, or for whatever line, yeah.
To the generate model, I mean, like where you're dimensioning to is to, like the offset is to the center line of the brackets or macro, or is to the top of macro?
I believe it's to the center line of the mat clip both ways. Like if I were to bring in the slab again and change this to a mat clip. Well, this one might not even show up because, oh, this is the wrong floor. Sorry. Oh. I don't know why this floor is not showing up anymore. That's interesting. There's always bugs, I feel like, when I use this. So it's not showing up, but I guess if I do face the system, you'll see, well, it's not oriented correctly because I put them 90 degrees. But if I were to move this, so you can see that it looks centered for both of those. Like the red and the green is like in the center of the mat clip. If I can, or I guess the green line is centered in the middle, and it looks like the red line for moving it up and down is on the top of the mat clip. I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's just wherever the insertion point is on that particular model is at.
So is it always to the top of macro and top of any generate model?
I think, like James said, it depends on the insertion point. These ones are the older mat clips because I know we have newer ones now. So for these ones, it looks like it is the top of the mat clip and then the center of it as well. But I'm not entirely sure for the newer mat clips if they change that insertion point or not.
Right. So we have to check it out, right, before we use this and need to see where's the insertion point.
Yes.
And I just wonder also, did you have experience that sometimes the bracket or generate model was upside down when you use this tool, or?
Yeah. Upside down. Yeah, I've had that before. I think that's why Zach put in this rotation so that you can flip it the way that you want it. But I know I've definitely had that issue. And then I think even when I rotated it, I did it incorrectly. Like if I did 90 degrees and it was still upside down, so I had to rotate it 180 degrees instead, or like 45 or whatever it was. So you might have to play around with it if you've never used it before and you don't know the insertion point and if you need to rotate it and all that. But once you know it, you can probably just jot it down somewhere so it's easier for placing all of them later on.
Yeah, just need to be careful, huh?
Yeah.
Otherwise, after all you're done, you feel, oh, it's done, but
It's not.
you realize it's all upside down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. I feel like for the Mac clips, you have to be super careful and make sure the holes are on the top instead of the bottom, or it's just little things like for the embeds too. I know it's kind of hard to tell if they're upside down.
Yeah.
So you just got to be a little careful.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
For you guys. And that's because I don't know Revit much. For the generic models pertain to details, right? Like for sunshade bracket. If the sunshade bracket, say, gets modified in sizes, does the generic model needs to be modified as well? Say like the blade of the sunshade bracket, like standing out from the building was 2.5 inches, but now it needs to be 4 inches tall. Does the generic model gets modified too? Does it contain data for the takeoff team? Or do they just go from the details?
I think it depends on the way they made the generic model. Like for this one, we can change the dimension from the faces system or the void top or all of that, void bottom. If they have that, if they have it so that you can change it yourself, then you can just manually select them and change them if you wanted to stick out more or move up or whatever is the change. So I think it just depends on the way they modeled or the way they created that generic model. If they were to include that you're able to change it yourself, then you wouldn't need a new one. But if they didn't do that, you would probably have to either ask for a new one, make yourself a new one, or just tell takeoff like that you don't have time to make a new one and to follow the drawings.
So Gabriel or Saul, so if we update these dimensions here, does that tell the takeoff program that it is something different?
Sorry. So I think from what I understand is if you go edit type on the sunshade bracket real quick, Carla. So there's some takeoff component data here. So that's right there. So it's this long formula. If you click on the 3 dots, oh man, he didn't line this. But basically, what it looks at is, I think the bracket void top. So it sees that there's like your void, so the bracket is kind of notched out in front. And I'm not sure if it looks at the length. Yeah, bracket length. So if you adjust those parameters, I think it adjusts the way their tag comes in. Is that right, Sol?
Do you know, quick question before answer. Do you know if this formula contains the length? I mean, we are exporting in one way the length?
Yeah, right there where she has her mouse, it says bracket length divided by 2.
Okay. So if that's the case, if we are exporting that data, yes, that's affecting the takeoff. This specific part, the length, the height of the bracket.
Yeah.
Can we try one?
I'm sorry, say again?
I was asking Carla if maybe we can just try one. Just grab one, create a new type, change something, and see if it gives it different takeoff.
Oh, no, you won't see that until they run it into the takeoff. The code that Zach has is kind of universal, and then whenever the UPD it kind of fills in based on what's ever filled in here.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it is, I guess it is possible to modify the parameters, which is the outside dimensions, then just to reflect the different size if necessary. But does the draft, I guess drafter is not very in control of like when, if they really need it for like they're working on it, they need it within the same week, they can't do that, huh? Or can they?
Yeah, you have control. We've made it to where it's like you're using this set bracket, right? This extrusion, and we made it to where it can be any length. So right now it's set to 8 inches by default, and based on where you're using that, say it's at the soffit, you know, you're just gonna have a piece like how she's sticking out here. It's gonna be at the bottom. And can you isolate just that bracket real quick, Carla? There you go. You can see that the piece inside the vertical is longer than the piece outside. So if she flexes the parameters, say you take out the void from the top 6.5 and just make it 0, that's going to change what it looks like in the model, and then it also changes what the tagline, I think, in the takeoff. So it's kind of like they have the ability to kind of modify it as needed depending on the fab it is. And then the takeoff can handle that part of it.
Okay. Yeah, nice. I guess that's what I was asking. If they're able to make the changes on their own. What about the dimensions, like for like bolts and stuff that go through? Is that the same thing? Because I don't see none of that here. Or it does. Saul, I guess, is that what you do separate on the side? That layout for the holes and stuff?
We normally do a layout all the time based on CAD because for some reason the horizontal views are not matching with the vertical views on about the fasteners. So we need to be precise because we're using decimal units instead of a fractional. Yeah. So yeah, the answer is I need to create my own layout. Can you?
Nice.
I was gonna say all that is inside the details. Like there's nothing in this generic model that has number of fasteners or layout and all that. It's kind of just based on the details.
Yeah, I guess that's why it's called generic, right?
Can you modify the height on this bracket, for example, the one that you have here? Is there any way you can change the height?
I'm not sure if it's the length.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
Nice. Yep. Thanks.
Are there any other questions?
Nice job, Carla.
Thanks, Javier.
Yeah,
I was
good job,
super
Carla.
nervous.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
did a lot better than myself, and I was nervous too.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, see you
Bye.
guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Carla.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.